ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له له الملك وله الحمد يحيي ويميت وبيده الخير وهو على كل شيء قدير. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وأن شر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. We praise and we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for blessing us with this day and for blessing us with the days ahead of us of Dhul Hijjah. Our brothers and sisters have already departed for Hajj, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept from them their pilgrimage and their journey to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's house. Dhul Hijjah is a very important time of the year, but more so than that, the scholars say that Dhul Hijjah is the most important 10 days of the year, and the nights of Ramadan, the last 10 nights of Ramadan, are the most important nights of the year. So there is a distinction between the days and the nights, but together make the most important days of Islam, of our Muslim calendar. And just to give background, we see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and how He creates structure for us. Because if all days were the same, if we're to think, if all days are to be the same, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala making them, then we would always be the same. Right? Our energy, our enthusiasm, right? Or vice versa. There would be nothing put in place to pick us up, to push us, to motivate us. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He favors and blesses some days more than others, so that we in turn can receive a boost. And that's only part of the wisdom. Of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's wisdom encompasses all and is greater than we can imagine or try to grasp. But that's not what I wanted to focus on. We can focus more on Dhul Hijjah and its virtues, inshallah. But what I really wanted to focus on during this khutbah was what they call the talbiyah, or what they call people saying Labbayk. That when people go for Hajj, the word and the expression, and inshallah, if we haven't yet, we will inshallah one day say Labbayk Allahumma Labbayk. We will say to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I'm here, I'm present. And this moment is a very emotional one. And a lot of people, right, when they describe Hajj, one of the things that they describe is they describe that moment where they see the Kaaba. They describe that moment of seeing the Kaaba and just forgetting everything else. That moment of seeing the Kaaba and just being in awe and admiration and gratefulness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is one of those truly amazing and moving and emotional moments. But of course, we're still here. For those of us who did not get to go, we're still here. And these days are still the most blessed days of the year. And for each and every one of us, Labbayk, to tell Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I'm present, I'm here, does not change. This is a reality for all of us. To be present for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to be present in our intention to Him and in the moments of our lives, right? To be right now in this salah, to be present, to tell Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? I'm not looking here, I'm not looking there, I'm not looking at my cell phone, I'm not seeing who comes in, when they come in, or what a child is doing, or this or that. I'm saying, Allah, Labbayk. I'm here, I'm present, I'm paying attention. And that's really what we're talking about here. When we're in our salah, we're praying, we're saying, Labbayk, right? I'm present. I'm focusing on my khushu', I'm focusing on my concentration, I'm focusing on you. Even the mundane aspects of life, such as walking around in the street, where you see a tree, or you see the road even, you're looking at these things, and you see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creation, and you say, Allah, I'm present. And so this word holds so much meaning for us, and really we're just scratching the surface here of what it means to be present for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But more so, Hajj is also about visiting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? It's about that longing to visit Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is what we call a show, that we have this kind of intense desire to visit Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is something that, inshallah, we ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us with, is that when we are in paradise, may Allah make us of the people of paradise. Ameen. When we are there, we will be sitting, inshallah, and we will be awaiting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to come and meet us. And we will see the nur of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We will see the light upon light upon light. And the believers will ask, is this Allah? Is this Allah? They'll say, no, this is not Allah. This is the light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then we will hear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, Assalamu alaikum, right, to all the believers. And so this is a moment, right, where people are saying, my Creator, my Provider, my Sustainer, the one who's given me everything, the one who I lived my whole life, and I never met, I never saw. Right? This longing to be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this expression that Labbayk is also about, this longing. And we can get an understanding of what it looks like as well from the first example from Salat al-Jum'ah, in the sense that, let's say we bring our cell phone right with us into Salat al-Jama'ah. Like we're all sitting, we have our cell phones. And then the cell phone rings, or it vibrates. And so in that moment, I may think, man, I need to get out of here, or I can't wait to get out of here for this to end so I can get back to what's going on. There's something out there in the world, someone needs me, someone is messaging me, someone's calling me, or work, or whatever. Right? So, you're longing to end. You're longing to attend to that. Whereas when we look at the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he told Bilal, where he told Bilal to make the iqamah, and he said, "Rayyihna biha," give us relaxation through salah. Give us, right? Let us to be relaxed, to be happy, to be at ease, to be worry-free. And so it's kind of a paradigm shift in a sense that instead of you here longing to be somewhere else, or longing to attend or be present somewhere else, you may be present somewhere else and you're longing to visit Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? You're longing to be present. And so when we look at the talbiyah, when we look at the nature of Labbayk, we should realize that before we can accomplish it there in Hajj, we should try to accomplish it here with the resources that we have and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put for us. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he tells us of the virtues of saying the bayt or saying the talbiyah, that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and this is reported in the Sahih, there is no Muslim who recites the talbiyah, but whatever is to his right and to his left of stones, rocks, and lumps of earth or clay, recites it with him. To the furthest point to the east and the west, meaning from his right and his left. So what we see here from this hadith, we're finding that when we say this, everything around us that surrounds us of nature and all of the things that we mentioned here, they are making this tasbih too, or they're making this talbiyah too with the person. And so this is a beautiful thing. This is the essence of presence. Right? That you're connected with Allah. You're connected with nature. And that's one of the things that I've noticed, especially, is that right now in our societies, and especially in our cities, where there is immense light pollution, people cannot see the stars because of the pollution in the sky, that we're not able to see properly what is in the skies. And further, our reliance upon technology and upon convenience makes us not see the value in nature. Going and seeing nature, going on a walk, going hiking, going to the beach, seeing the ocean, swimming, all of these things are part of nature and part of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's signs. And you see that for years and centuries since the beginning of mankind, human beings have been taking inspiration from the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from the skies, from the stars, from all types of nature. And it is no surprise that wherever we find a disconnect from nature, we find a disconnect from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whenever we find a disconnect from nature and an over-reliance upon technology, you find a disconnect from God. Now, of course, there is a balance to be maintained. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created technology as well as a resource for us that it can be used advantageously, but not at the expense of others. That is the key point, is that we cannot indulge in something or use a resource at the expense of our natural resources. And so one of the things that I wanted to challenge every single person here to do during these moments of Dhul Hijjah was to go out and declare different dhikr and shahada and talbiyah out in nature and connect yourself. Now, when we look at the Sahaba, we'll find that, for instance, Ibn Abbas and Ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhum, they used to, during the times of the Hijjah, during the days, they would go out in the marketplace and they would say, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah. They would do the takbirat, they would do different things during the days of the Hijjah. And of course, if you were to maybe do that now, you might get taken down by security. So that's, of course, obviously you don't want to put yourself into harm. But, for instance, right now amongst Muslims, what's wrong with it? If it's Dhul Hijjah, what's wrong with saying takbirat or saying Allahu Akbar? That's the thing, is that the way that we conduct ourselves and police ourselves amongst non-Muslims, or to protect ourselves or stay out of harm's way, shouldn't mean that we have to change completely as human beings. Right? We can still do a lot of these things. We can still glorify Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala amongst ourselves out loud. And there's nothing wrong with that. We're not going to look at each other and be, oh, calm down. No, we have to have some type of understanding that, for instance, when we say La sharika lak, right? When we say in the talbiyah that I'm present and I don't associate any partners with you, part of this is fear. That sometimes we fear people. We fear disobeying our culture. We fear going against the grain of our society more than we fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is something very basic, of course, but it's something very prominent and important, that if we look into ourselves and we look and we ask ourselves, what is our Pharaoh? What is our Fir'aun? As Musa alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him, don't fear. He said, don't be scared of Fir'aun. Don't be scared of those magicians. Right? Because I'm with you. I'm walking with you. And you're walking in my light. So what do you have to fear? And so that's important for us as well, is that we need to come to terms with the balance and with the understanding. Even though it sounds simple, even though we may have heard it 100 times, it's important. And so for us, during these days of Dhul Hijjah, understanding that we need to connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through deep reflection, through connection with nature, through connection, right, with our families, with other Muslims, through connection with our masajid, coming to the masjid and saying, Labbayk, I'm here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm not worried about anything else. But more than anything, we need to understand that these days of Dhul Hijjah give us an opportunity for transformation. It's not just about accumulating as many deeds as you can. Of course, at the surface, that is excellent. But it's also about really reaching in here. Because we all know what we need to do. But we're all searching for the power and the will and the himmah to do it. And so these days offer us an opportunity to really transform and to really say, Allah, I know I haven't been present, but here I am now. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for tawfiq in this as we understand and begin to look at this legacy of believers and prophets that all answered the call of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when we look at those going for Hajj, they're answering the call of Ibrahim alayhi salam. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him, and this is in Surah Al-Hajj, وَأَذِّن فِي النَّاسِ بِالْحَجِّ يَأْتُوكَ رِجَالًا وَعَلَى كُلِّ دَامِرٍ يَأْتِينَ مِنْ كُلِّ فَجٍّ عَمِيقٍ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling Ibrahim, and call, as it make adhan, وَأَذِّن, call to the people, and they will come. And so for us, Labbayk is also understanding that every single person who is close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala since the beginning of mankind walk the path that we're trying to walk. We're not special. There's nothing new. And when people go for Hajj, that's one of the first things they realize when they put on their ihram and they take off the clothes that they're used to wearing and the identities that they're used to wearing, right? Their careers and their lives and their socioeconomic status and all of these things that we're used to wearing. And then we put the ihram on and we look and everyone else is just like us. During this time when we say Labbayk, part of the understanding is that this is who I really am. And when we look at what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about people who forget God, He says they forgot God, so they forgot themselves. Part of the things that one person picks up when they declare Labbayk is you see who you really are. And that is something beautiful. Do we even know ourselves anymore? So when we remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and when we are present with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we get to see who we really are. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for tawfiq and guidance and knowledge and wisdom and will to do what we need to do during these 10 days. And it is also recommended to fast as much as you can and do nawafil to the best of your ability, to do extra prayers, to do tahajjud, to give charity to the best of your extent, to give during these days. But also, one of the things that I recommended earlier, which I really myself and I wanted to share once again with all of you is try your best really that when you go outside, you connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you connect with His creation, and do not neglect the strength of that moment or those moments. And there's a beautiful hadith which is recorded in Al-Bukhari and Al-Muslim about a shepherd who has his sheep and he's alone on a mountain. He's alone on a mountain and he stops and he makes adhan and he prays. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looks down at this shepherd, at his servant, and He says, "This is my servant. He is sincere to me. He is in awe of me. And I have forgiven his sins." In the sense that to be in awe of nature and to be in awe of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to have that kind of amazing moment where you're just thinking about how high and how great your Creator is and the Creator is. And then you sincerely to respond to that with good actions and fruitful deeds. There's nothing better than that. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله العظيم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. At this point, I'd like to ask everyone if they could, inshallah, move up and make room for others. So I just wanted to make a few more points on the importance and the expression of Labbayk. Labbayk is a term commonly used to say to someone, "I am at your service." So if someone called me and I came up and I said, "Labbayk, I'm here, I'm at your service." And this is a reminder to rededicate ourselves to the service of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to the service of His creation. And to find during these days how you can serve people, right? And those close to you and those not close to you. If you have any extra time or any money that you can give, rededicate yourself to service for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for Allah and for the benefit of your own self. And the last thing that I wanted to add was that there is none of this, none of the things we talked about, nothing makes it happen more than the Quran. Right? Nothing makes us capable of transformation, capable of empowering ourselves to follow through with the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more than attaching ourselves to Quran. So in these 10 days, make sure you take some time to rededicate yourself to the Quran in any capacity. Whether it's just reading it, reading in Arabic, reading in English, reading explanations, watching lectures online, whatever it may be, to whatever capacity you can handle, make an effort to rededicate yourself to the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us people who walk and talk with the Quran. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us people who strive to act upon and implement the Quran in our everyday lives. And so, just a few announcements, inshallah, before we close. September 4th, Sunday School, open house, 10 a.m. To 1 p.m. for those interested in attending the school in September. Sign up kids 6 years and up for Sunday School at the masjid or online at YUSUFMOSQUE.com. There's a really beautiful event tomorrow, which is Qiyam, Quran, and dinner at 8 p.m. After Maghrib with Sheikh Sayyid Abu Saud, who was the Imam at ISB, but I believe he is departing. So he has an amazing voice, and mashallah, whatever you guys can benefit from him, please come and join and be present and have a good time, inshallah, with dinner with your brothers and sisters in Islam. Looking for Sunday school teachers to volunteer for this September, speak to Abdullah or Wasim. Of course, there's lunch downstairs with all proceeds going to the maintenance and upkeeping of the masjid. And we are collecting some donations for the flood-hit victims at Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Brother Shuja will be with the box at the door. Please donate generously to that cause. And join the Boston Islamic Seminary as they kick off their inaugural semester with an opening celebration on Sunday, September 18th at 2 p.m. at the ISBCC in Roxbury. Spend time getting a first-hand experience of their vision for Islamic knowledge in America. Don't miss out on this unique and wonderful opportunity to meet with our beloved Sheikh Basyuni and Imam Ubaydullah Evans. With that, I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us success from all angles and all aspects and from places we did not even expect.
This wasn't working. This wasn't working. That changed from the floor. In the front. This wasn't working over there.
Our Lord, O you who are most compassionate and most merciful, O you who have given us this day of Friday that we may celebrate and glorify and praise you. O you who have given us the days of Dhul Hijjah to increase our good actions and our fruitful actions and to grow closer to you. Ya Allah, we ask that you accept from all the Hujjaj, from all those who are going for Hajj, that you accept from them and that you bring them back as people who are close to you and people that can enlighten and inspire humanity. Ya Allah, we ask for peace in our lands and peace all around the globe and the world. We ask that you guide the leaders of our countries and of the countries all around the world to make better decisions and to be obedient to you and to not harm or treat the people unjustly. Ya Allah, we ask for justice everywhere and all around. We ask that you give relief and suffering. We give relief to those who need it and suffering to those who have oppressed them. Ya Allah, we are in need of you. We are in need of your mercy and your guidance and your knowledge and your wisdom. We ask that you shower upon us your mercy and benevolence. We ask that you shower upon us your rahmah, that we may make better decisions and that we may take a path closer to you. Ya Allah, guide us to fasting and charity and extra prayers and tahajjud and to not miss any of our obligatory prayers. Guide us to connect with you and to connect with nature and to connect with our family, our loved ones, and the Muslims. Ya Allah, allow us to interact beautifully with all those who we see and who we interact with, our colleagues, our co-workers, our neighbors, anyone we see in the street. Allow them to be enlightened by our minimal interactions, and allow them to love us, and allow us to love them, and allow us to interact with one another gracefully and peacefully and kindly. Ya Allah, give us the courage to sing your praises and to praise you, and to keep up with the glorification and dhikr and remembrance of you. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala al-mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Inna Allah ya'muru bil 'adli wal ihsan